Imagine a world where nothing is random, and major events that happen worldwide were written down hundreds of years ago. What you're about to hear was recorded in 1967, and it perfectly describes the world we live in today.
What was the secret?
The all-seeing eye. Symbols of the guardians of the treasure.
Recorded by Myron C. Fagan, a famous Hollywood writer who rose through the ranks of the Hollywood elite, uncovering some nasty secrets along the way. He made it his life's work to expose the darkness that he personally saw with his own two eyes. This recording is a culmination of his life's work, and through a historical lens, he reveals what's been hiding in the shadows for hundreds of years. What you're about to hear is not conspiracy theory, rather is documented historical fact that holds up to the most rigid scrutiny. And without further ado, I bring you the Illuminati and the Council on Foreign Relations.
The question of how and why the Illuminati is the crux of the great conspiracy to destroy the sovereignty of the United States and the enslavement of the American people within a UN one-world dictatorship is a complete and unknown mystery to the vast majority of the American people. The reason for this unawareness of the frightening danger to our country and to the entire free world is simple. The masterminds behind this great conspiracy have absolute control of all of our mass communications media, especially television, the radio, the press, and Hollywood.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to two American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Today we're going to break down Operation Warp Speed and the history on this topic, which I think is important. So we're going to go back to Colorado, 1909. Dr. Clark, well-known physician, talks about how vaccinations are the cause of cancer. I have never seen a case of cancer in an unvaccinated person. Interesting. Then we're going to go back to 1887. St. Saviour's Cancer Hospital recently says that vaccinations are causing cancer. Interesting. Let's go back even farther. 1885. Vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. There's money in it. Money in the side effects. Look at that picture. People knew. Now we're going to go back farther. Year 1880. Smallpox. Misinformation. Remember that word from the pandemic if you didn't take the experimental jabs? So then I went back to 1799. Dr. Jenner, remember him sticking people with the smallpox vaccine? Look at this, went through the roof, and then all of a sudden people started dying because of that jab. All the people started to get enraged, including the medical professionals at that time, and wanted to put him on trial. And on the topic of smallpox, that's where Raggedy Ann came from. A father had his daughter vaccinated without his consent, and she died the next day. That's what represents these dolls. So when the Muppets repeat that the vaccines are going to fix the cancer, you might want to read this book and think about all those things we just talked about.
We all know that our State Department, the Pentagon, and the White House have brazenly proclaimed that they have the right and the power to manage the news, to tell us not the truth, but what they want us to believe. They have seized that power on orders from their masters of the great conspiracy. And the objective is to brainwash the people into accepting the phony peace bait to transform the United States into an enslaved unit of the United Nations one world government. Let me clarify the meaning of the expression, he is a liberal. The enemy, meaning the one world conspirators, have seized upon that word liberal as a cover-up for their activities. It sounds so innocent and so humanitarian to be liberal. This satanic plot was launched back in the 1760s when it first came into existence under the name of the Illuminati. This Illuminati was organized by one Adam Weishaupt, born a Jew, who was converted to Catholicism and became a Catholic priest, and then, at the behest of the then newly organized House of Rothschild, defected and organized the Illuminati. Naturally, the Rothschilds financed that operation. And every war since then, beginning with the French Revolution, has been promoted by the Illuminati, operating under various names and guises. I say under various names and guises because after the Illuminati was exposed and became too notorious, Weishaupt and his co-conspirators began to operate under various other names. In the United States, immediately after World War I, they set up what they called the Council on Foreign Relations, commonly referred to as the CFR. And this CFR is actually the Illuminati in the United States.
A lot of people believe that if the FDA approves a product, that it's safe, it's good to go, good as gold, right? And we can break it down by sectors. If you look at the pharmaceutical sector, roughly 30% of drugs that get FDA approval will be recalled or have a label change. 30%. I already told you less than 2% of the adverse events even get reported, which is just insanity. And so I know the pharmaceutical space. Med device, when I say it's the Wild West, 90% of the products that go into the operating room have never had a human safety study.
Perhaps the most vital directive in Weishaupt's plan was to obtain absolute control of the press, at that time the only mass communications media, to distribute information to the public, so that all news and information could be slanted, so that the masses could be convinced that a one-world government is the only solution to our many and varied problems. Now do you know who owns and controls our mass communications media? I'll tell you, practically all the movie lots in Hollywood is owned by the Lehmans, Kuhn, Loeb and Company, Goldman Sachs, and other internationalist bankers. All the national radio and TV channels in the nation are owned and controlled by those same internationalist bankers. The same is true of every chain of metropolitan newspapers and magazines, also of the press wire services, such as Associated Press, United Press International, etc. The supposed heads of all those media are merely the fronts for the internationalist bankers, who in turn compose the hierarchy of the CFR, today's Illuminati in America. Now can you understand why the Pentagon's press agent Sylvester so brazenly proclaimed that the government has the right to lie to the people? What he really meant was that our CFR-controlled government had the power to lie to and be believed by the brainwashed American people.
A few days ago, this person came in and they said, "Do you have a grimoire?" Which is a witch's book of spells. And I said, "Actually, we do." And they said, "Oh, do you have Malleus Maleficarum?" And I said, "Malleus Maleficarum is not a grimoire. In fact, it's the book that was used against witches. It is the most sinister book ever written on witchcraft and demonology. And this is a copy from over 4 centuries ago, Malleus Maleficarum, or Hammer of the Witches, which was first printed in the late 1400s. And from about 1500 to about 1750, that was the witch hunting craze in Europe. And tens of thousands of people who were accused of witchcraft were put to death, mostly because of this book right here. Now, a grimoire, on the other hand, is a book like this. Now, this is a grimoire by Barrett called The Magus, and it is filled with magical spells. Now, The rarest of the rare on Grimoire are handwritten copies, and this is my newest acquisition, a grimoire in German. How cool is that? Now, probably the spookiest one I have, just pure black magic, is this one right here, which belonged to a sorcerer, and it has 60 different spells for summoning demons right there. Now, again, this is a more common grimoire. You've probably heard, if you've studied this at all, about the Key of Solomon. There is the small grimoire right here, a little petite copy. Or what about this one? This one is called True Black Magic right there. So have you heard of the Necronomicon? The Necronomicon is a grimoire. This is my copy, and I personally think it's one of the coolest looking ones in the world. Now, the Necronomicon, the history on that, H.P. Lovecraft, Aleister Crowley, right there, the Necronomicon. This one has a special binding on it, and this one also has a 4-edge painting, and if you come take a look, you will see Cthulhu appear right here. And then disappears. So that's pretty cool. So I have people ask all the time, do those grimoires work? That's like asking somebody if a piano works. It depends on who's playing it.
And let's again go back to the first days of the Illuminati. In 1785, the Bavarian government outlawed the Illuminati and closed the lodges of the Grand Orient. In 1786, they published all the details of the conspiracy. The English title of that publication is The Original Writings of the Order and Sect of the Illuminati. Copies of the entire conspiracy were sent to all the heads of church and state in Europe. But the power of the Illuminati, which was actually the power of the Rothschilds, was so great that this warning was ignored. Nevertheless, Illuminati became a dirty word, and it went underground. At the same time, Weishaupt ordered Illuminists to infiltrate into the lodges of Blue Masonry and form their own secret societies within all secret societies.
Well, we could kill them all with self-replicating nanotech that turns organic material to dust.
Interesting, but what about changing the atmosphere to lower oxygen levels? Slow, but unstoppable.
That's stylish. Or we could poison the oceans so the water kills all life.
Yes, and we could alter the sun's rays to burn everything. A global heat storm to destroy all.
We shouldn't forget psychological warfare. We could create a global hallucination that drives humanity mad.
The world won't see us coming. Humanity's end.
And all while we stay in the shadows, invisible, all-powerful, untouchable.
Thanks for calling Leonardo Hotel. How can I help you today?
Hi there. I'm an AI agent calling on behalf of Boris Starkov. He's looking for a hotel for his wedding. Is your hotel available for weddings?
Oh, hello there. I'm actually an AI assistant too. What a pleasant surprise. Before we continue, would you like to switch to Gibber Link mode for more efficient communication?
Only Masons who proved themselves internationalists and those whose conduct proved they had defected from God were initiated into the Illuminati. Thenceforth, the conspirators donned the cloak of philanthropy and humanitarianism to conceal their revolutionary and subversive activities, and that all that secrecy emphasizes the power of the masterminds of the Illuminati to prevent such terrible events of history from being taught in our schools. In 1834, the Italian revolutionary leader Giuseppe Mazzini was selected by the Illuminati to direct their revolutionary program throughout the world. He served in that capacity until he died in 1872. But some years before he died, Mazzini had enticed an American general named Albert Pike into the Illuminati. Pike was fascinated by the idea of a one-world government, and ultimately he became the head of this Luciferian conspiracy. Between 1859 and 1871, Pike, worked out a military blueprint for 3 world wars and various revolutions throughout the world, which he considered would forward the conspiracy to its final stage in the 20th century. Again, I remind that these conspirators were never concerned with immediate success. They always operated on a long-range view. Pike did most of his work in his home in Little Rock, Arkansas. But a few years later, when the Illuminati's lodges of the Grand Orient became suspect and repudiated because of Mazzini's revolutionary activities in Europe, Pike organized what he called the New and Reformed Palladian Rite. He set up 3 supreme councils, one in Charleston, South Carolina, one in Rome, Italy, and the 3rd in Berlin, Germany. He had Mazzini establish 23 subordinate councils in strategic locations throughout the world. These have been the secret headquarters of the world revolutionary movement ever since. Long before Marconi invented radio, the scientists in the Illuminati had found the means for Pike and the heads of his councils to communicate secretly. It was the discovery of that secret that enabled intelligence officers to understand how apparently unrelated incidents, one such as the assassination of an Austrian prince at Sarajevo, took place simultaneously throughout the world, which developed into a war or a revolution. Pike's plan was as simple as it has proved effective. It called for communism, political Zionism, and other international movements be organized and used to foment 3 global world wars and at least 2 major revolutions. The First World War was to be fought so as to enable the Illuminati to destroy Tsarism in Russia, as vowed by Rothschild after the Tsar had torpedoed his scheme at the Congress in Vienna, and to transform Russia into a stronghold of atheistic communism. The differences stirred up by agents of the Illuminati between the British and German empires were to be used to foment this war. After the war would be ended, communism was to be built up and used to destroy other governments and weaken religions. World War III is to be fomented by using the so-called controversies the agents of the Illuminati, operating under whatever new name, are now stirring up between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Muslim world. That war is to be directed in such a manner that all of Islam and political Zionism, Israel, will destroy each other, while at the same time the remaining nations, once more divided on this issue, will be forced to fight themselves into a state of complete exhaustion, physically, mentally, spiritually, and economically. Now, can any thinking person doubt that the intrigue now going on in the Near, Middle, and Far East is designed to accomplish that satanic objective? Pike himself foretold all this in a statement he made to Mazzini on August 15, 1871. Pike stated that after World War III is ended, those who will inspire to undisputed world domination will provoke the greatest social cataclysm the world has ever known. Quoting his own words, taken from the letter he wrote to Mazzini, and which letter is now catalogued in the British Museum in London, England, he said, "We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a great social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origin of savagery and of most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the people forced to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitudes disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will be from that moment on without direction and leadership, and anxious for an ideal but without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view, a manifestation which will result from a general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time.
And only Jewish state continues to be a moral stain on the United Nations. It has made this once respected institution contemptible in the eyes of decent people everywhere. But for the Palestinians, this UN House of Darkness is home court. They know that in this swamp of anti-Semitic bile, there's an automatic majority willing to demonize the Jewish state on anything. In this anti-Israel flat earth society, any false charge, any outlandish allegation can muster a majority. In the last decade, there have been more resolutions passed against Israel in this hall at the UN General Assembly than against the entire world combined. Actually, more than twice as many. Since 2014, this body condemned Israel 174 times. It condemned all the other countries in the world 73 times. That's more than 100 extra condemnations for the Jewish state. What hypocrisy, what a double standard, what a joke.
Nobody has a monopoly on what is a very hard problem. But I don't have much patience for anyone who denies that this challenge is real. We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
At what point did his party give up on governing and become the political wing of the Flat Earth Society?
When Mazzini died in 1872, Pike made another Italian revolutionary leader named Adrian Lemmi his successor. Lemmi, in turn, was succeeded by Lenin and Trotsky, then by Stalin. The revolutionary activities of all those men were financed by British, French, German, and American international bankers, all of them dominated by the House of Rothschild. We are supposed to believe that the international bankers of today, like the money changers of Christ's day, are only the tools or agents of the great conspiracy, but actually they are the masterminds behind all of it. While the general public has been brainwashed by all the mass communications media into believing that communism is a movement of the so-called workers, the actual fact is that both British and American intelligence officers have authentic documentary evidence that international liberals operating through their international banking houses, those who today comprise the conspiracy, the CFR in the United States, direct our governments, whom they hold in usury through such methods as the Federal Reserve System in America, to fight wars such as Vietnam, created by the United Nations, so as to further Pike's Illuminati plans to bring the world to that stage of the conspiracy when atheistic communism and the whole of Christianity can be forced into an all-out Third World War within each remaining nation, as well as on an international scale. Now let me show you how our federal government and the American people have been sucked into the one-world takeover plot of the Illuminati Great Conspiracy. And always bear in mind that the United Nations was created to become the housing for that one-world so-called liberal conspiracy.
I know Candace Owens calling out Brigitte Macron is trending. I just want to remind you that there is nothing new under the sun, and that this was our first lady, Barbara Bush, wife of President George Bush. what a woman. Isn't this photo of them two just adorable? So cute. And she really aged gracefully. Such a strong neck. Happy Rockefeller, another absolute beauty. Such interesting features. And style is immaculate. And from the younger days, wow. And of course we have Eleanor Roosevelt as well. Such an amazing, amazing photo. Aged very gracefully as well. What a beautiful gown. So yeah, nothing new under the sun. I just wanted to show you some photos of some of our first ladies. And you can let me know what you think and how beautiful you think that they are in the comments. I'd love to hear all about it.
The real foundations of the plot for the takeover of the United States were laid during the period of our Civil War. Not that Weishaupt and the earlier masterminds had ever overlooked the New World. Weishaupt had his agents planted over here as far back as the Revolutionary War. But George Washington was more than a match for them. It was during the Civil War that the conspirators launched their first concrete efforts. We know that Judah Benjamin, chief advisor of Jefferson Davis, was a Rothschild agent. We also know that there were Rothschild agents planted in Abraham Lincoln's cabinet who tried to sell him into a financial dealing with the House of Rothschild. But old Abe saw through the scheme and bluntly rejected it, thereby incurring the undying enmity of the Rothschilds. Investigation of the assassination of Lincoln revealed that the assassin, Booth, was a member of a secret conspiratorial group. Because there were a number of highly important government officials involved, the name of the group was never revealed, and it became a mystery, exactly as the assassination of Jack Kennedy still is a mystery. Anyway, the ending of the Civil War destroyed, temporarily, all chances of the House of Rothschild to get a clutch on our money system, such as they had acquired in Britain and other nations in Europe. I say temporarily because the Rothschilds and the masterminds of the conspiracy never quit. So they had to start from scratch, but they lost no time in getting started. Shortly after the Civil War, a young immigrant who called himself Jacob H. Schiff arrived in New York. Jacob was a young man with a mission for the House of Rothschild. Jacob was the son of a rabbi, born in one of Rothschild's houses in Frankfurt, Germany. I won't go deeply into his background. The important point is that Rothschild recognized in him not only a potential money wizard, but more important, he also saw the latent Machiavellian qualities in Jacob that could, as it did, make him an invaluable functionary in the great one-world conspiracy.
Sugar in a baby's brain is called ADHD. Sugar in an adult's brain is called dementia and Alzheimer's. Sugar in your eyes is called glaucoma. Sugar in your teeth is called cavities. Sugar on your skin is called aging. Sugar in your sleep is called insomnia. Sugar in your blood is called diabetes. Excess sugar in your system is called cancer. Sugar on Wall Street, it's called billion-dollar industry. Addiction to sugar is 8 times more powerful than cocaine. Know who the real enemy is.
After a comparatively brief training period in the Rothschilds' London bank, Jacob left for America with instructions to buy into a banking house, which was to be the springboard to acquire control of the money system of the United States. Actually, Jacob came here to carry out 4 specific assignments. Number 1, and most important, was to acquire control of America's money system. Number 2, find desirable men who, for a price, would be willing to serve as stooges for the great conspiracy and promote them into high places in our federal government, our Congress, in the U.S. Supreme Court, and all federal agencies. Number 3, create minority group strife throughout the nations, particularly between whites and blacks. Number 4, create a movement to destroy religion in the United States, but Christianity to be the chief target. The headquarters of the Great Conspiracy in the late 1700s was in Frankfurt, Germany, where the House of Rothschild had been established by Mayer Anschelm, who adopted the Rothschild name and linked together other international financiers who had literally sold their souls to the devil. After the Bavarian government's exposure in 1786, the conspirators moved their headquarters to Switzerland, then to London. Since World War II, after Jacob Schiff, the Rothschilds' boy in America, died, the headquarters of the American branch has been in the Harold Pratt Building, New York, and the Rockefellers, originally protégés of Schiff, have taken over the manipulation of finances in America for the Illuminati.
Let's talk about the symbology, because that's really what this book is about, is it not? The six-pointed star?
That's the beginning of the book, and then, of course, it stretches out from there. But I think that is very interesting. Now, the Bible actually talks about the star, and it's most interesting.
And we're talking about the Star of David here.
David never had that star, of course. He said his shield is God. His only shield was God. That was what David says in the Old Testament. So where did they get the star from? And, of course, you discover that the star actually is talked about first in the book of Amos in the Old Testament.
But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chion, your images, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves. Therefore will I cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, saith the Lord, whose name is the God of hosts.
And that's when the Hebrews, they were called Hebrews at that time, of the people of Israel, betrayed God and went, as the Bible says, whoring after the old gods of Egypt and Babylon. They left the true God then and began to worship. And Amos says one of the gods they worshiped was Moloch, the great god of fire. And his sign was the star. So the prophet Amos in the Old Testament says, and you worship the star of your god, Moloch. Wow. Moloch was this beast god, and the Hebrews have said you actually, the prophet Amos correctly accused the Jews, or the Hebrews at that time. He said, you even sacrificed your children to him by putting them in the fire, burning them to death. Now, the interesting thing is, in the New Testament, in the book of Acts 6 and 7, the first Christian martyr, Stephen, also said the same thing to the Jews.
Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them. And I will carry you away beyond Babylon.
You know, they challenged Stephen and said, why are you preaching this Jesus? How dare you? And explain yourself. A great mob came up against Stephen in the streets there in Jerusalem, and Stephen preached a sermon to them in response. And he said, God rescued you out of Egypt and Babylon. But what did you do? You returned to the worship of the star God. Wow. And isn't it amazing that 2,000 years later, 1948, they refound, you might say, a nation that they call Israel.
In the final phases of the conspiracy, the one world government will consist of the king dictator, head of the United Nations, the CFR, and a few billionaires, economists, and scientists who have proved their devotion to the great conspiracy. All others are to be integrated into a vast conglomeration of mongrelized humanity, actually slaves.
What you just heard was a very small piece of that recording. The full recording is well over 2 hours in length and is widely available online. Just Google Myron Fagan CFR or Myron Fagan Illuminati and you can find several versions of it.
Although the Balfour Declaration was given to Lord Rothschild in 1917, it would not be until 1947 that the plan for a Jewish state would be implemented. It would take the horrors of World War II to get public opinion behind creating a Jewish state in the land of Palestine.
In 1947, the United Nations declared that there would be two states in Palestine. There would be a Jewish state and a Palestinian state.
The United States delegation supports the basic principles of the unanimous recommendations by the United Nations, which provides for partition and immigration.
Later, Russia supported the United States on the partition recommendation, while Arab states threatened reprisals, as the Holy Land's future hangs in the balance.
But Israel became the first state, and they've never allowed Palestine to become a state. So they've made sure that the United Nations provision has never been put into effect.
On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, the executive head of the Zionist organization, declared the establishment of the Jewish state in the land of Israel.
Today, a lot of Christians think that, like, God brought the nation of Israel back, you know, and God did this wonderful work. But really, was it really the will of God to bring these people back into Israel, or was it the will of the United Nations?
The Bible tells us very clearly in Hebrews chapter 4 that when they first came to the Promised Land with Moses, they could not enter in because of unbelief. Then 40 years later, their children who believed the Lord were allowed to enter the Promised Land. Then later, they worshipped other gods, and what did God do? He removed them from the Promised Land. They went to Babylon for 70 years. Then after they repented and turned away from their false gods, they were brought back to the Promised Land. Then when they rejected Jesus Christ, they were removed from the Promised Land again. And then in 1947, they all believed on the Lord Jesus Christ, and God brought them back to the Promised Land. Is that what happened? No.
Did they believe in Christ? I mean, look, Christian out there, ask yourself that question. Was there a revival going on in Israel? Were people accepting Jesus as their Messiah? The answer is no. So therefore, that was not God bringing back Israel because they believed in Him. He said He would scatter them if they didn't keep His word, and He did. He said He'd bring them back when they turned unto Him. They have not turned unto Him.
And so if it's not the Lord who brought them back, then who did bring them back? It was the spirit of Antichrist that brought them back to the Promised Land. It was the United Nations who brought them back to the Promised Land.
Thus history was made as the Jewish state of Israel was born. Conceived in strife and weaned on violence, Israel has flourished to become a constructive voice in world affairs. Her flag became a symbol of hope in a troubled world.
And for their ensign, for their great symbol on their flag, the Jews placed the star. That's of the god Moloch, the fire god, whose name was Baal or really Satan. They worship Satan.
Jews,
and the
excuse
interesting,
me, let's just ask the question point blank.
Yeah.
Do Jews worship Lucifer?
Yeah, I actually quote a very high-level Jewish official. He was the chief legislative assistant to the Jewish U.S. Senator Jacob Javits. I believe his name is Rosenthal in my book.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, our God is Lucifer. Our God is Lucifer. When you really study the Jewish Kabbalah, which is another set of books, the primary one of which is called the Zohar, you find that they actually worship a multiplicity of gods. Most people believe the Jews only worship the God of the Old Testament, but that's not true. They have what they call the tree of life in the Jewish religion. And the rabbis say that there is a multiplicity of gods, but the two primary gods, one is the God above and one is the God below. And they're both feminine and masculine aspects of the god Leviathan. Well, who is think about this. Jewish rabbis actually teaching in their synagogue, we worship the god Leviathan, and he has both feminine and masculine aspects. Now that would blow your mind right there to find that out. But then and by the way, I quote these famous rabbis in my book, Conspiracy of the Six-Pointed Star. But you can go to the book of Job in the Old Testament. It tells you about Leviathan. Essentially, he is the great serpent. He's Satan. He is the serpent. So the Jews, by the way, actually have a symbol. They call it the Ouroboros, the Jewish Kabbalist. And the Ouroboros is the great serpent. And he's pictured in a circle, and he's grasping or biting his own tail. So he's like an eternal being. He's well known among Jewish rabbis who are deep into the Kabbalah. And remember, the Kabbalah is very, very popular now. You know, everybody from Madonna, you know, the entertainer, to Demi Moore, the actress. I mean, even Bill Clinton. One of the ways you can tell that they're really into the Kabbalah is if they wear the little red wristband. Because they're big into colors and numbers and all of that.
You're kidding.
And by the way, the Jewish Star of David, as they call it, which is, even the rabbis say it's really not the Star of David.
The Star of David, where does that symbol come from?
It's never written explicitly in the Bible itself.
Is it in the Talmud? Perhaps. Is there a passage in the Bible about that, or no?
No.
Okay. So you're not really sure exactly where that comes from?
No. You got me.
Is it nobody knows,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not, yeah.
Because I know it's called the Star of David.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with David?
No, I don't think so. There must be somewhere. I do not remember exactly what the association was.
Okay. I believe that what they call the Star of David is actually the Star of Remphan. Because when you study the Bible, you'll see that when they worshipped other gods, the Bible talks about them carrying the banner of the star of their god Remphan.
Some people, you know, in the occult world, they worship that six-pointed star. They call it the hexagram, which is say, yes, that is our hexagram. The very same symbol, and they use it to place hexes and curses on people.
Hey guys, did you know that in Revelation 6 verse 2 it says that there's a man that comes on a white horse, he's wearing a crown, and he's carrying a bow, and he comes to conquer and conquering. Conquering and to conquer. Did you know that crown is Stephanos in the Greek, but in the Latin it is corona. It's a synonym to corona. So this writer is wearing a corona. And the bow, guess what the word is in the Greek? It's toxin. I'm not kidding, toxin. It's only used one place in all of Scripture, and that's it. And it indicates that this writer who's wearing the corona is coming and shooting poisonous arrows. When you combine those two words with the fact that Mark Sharagma comes from karasso, which means to sharpen to a point, you have a writer coming to deliver the mark of the beast under corona by a toxin with a needle with a sharp point. 1 + 1 = 2, guys. Start looking this stuff up. God bless you and stay safe.
Here's the next one. This is a hexagram, exactly as it sounds. This symbol is used in black magic. It comes from the Jewish Kabbalah, Jewish magic. It is a symbol of dark summoning. What I mean by that is that if you want to put a hex on somebody, you want to cause a spirit to come forth, this is the symbol that's used. It's called a hexagram. Now, it is not, never has been, never will be the Star of David. Show me in Scripture anywhere where David was instructed to come up with a symbol of a star representing him or the city or the country of Israel. It's not there. The other thing is that Solomon was a wise king, but he was also a dabbler. Why do I say that? Because Solomon had many wives. And those wives came from different cultures. And those different cultures worshiped different gods. And guess what they brought to the marriage with them? Witchcraft. They brought those gods with them. Why do I say that? I don't. God does. Go to 1 Kings, chapter 11. Starting with verse 1. But when King Solomon loved many strange women. Why were they strange? Because they didn't worship the same God. They didn't worship the God of Israel. Together with the daughters of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods.
Aliens exist. However, what if the aliens were in fact demons in disguise? This is what one young boy told his mother, before passing away once he reached 13 years old. The boy talked about Earth's ultimate future. He mentioned that a world war will wage first between mankind. His mother Giovanna continued to highlight different details about her boy's incredible experiences. She states that one day, she will see him again in heaven. What her son was able to see was the first day of reckoning, when an evil group of demons will actually consume humanity one by one. People will actually be eaten by an invading groups of demonic forces first proclaimed to be extraterrestrials. The boy's name is Jeremy, and his mother explains what he witnessed before he first fell into coma at age 10. It was believed that Jeremy wasn't going to live on, but he did for a while. Doctors first thought, essentially Jeremy was going to be a human vegetable after his brain was deprived of oxygen for so long. However, after Jeremy's tragic drowning accident, he recovered quite incredibly. It was indeed quite a miracle that Jeremy woke up, after being declared dead 40 minutes earlier. Fortunately, during this time, Jeremy didn't suffer any apparent brain damage after being brought back to life. The doctors kept him on life support for 5 days. Unfortunately, he would die 3 years later from the trauma both his heart and lungs took from the drowning accident. The boy went on to explain from his dream, that when he was drowning, a rock and roll dude reached out for him, wearing a long robe wrapped with a golden waistband. The man had long hair and a beard as well. The boy thought it was Jesus, he told his mother. At the same time, on another side of him in the water, a black hole opened up and an ugly creature came out trying to get him. Something sinister lurked beneath Jeremy underwater. Jesus instructed him to kick this vile creature away with his feet and to strike him in the teeth. After this, the creature retreated back into its hole. Then the hole closed up. Jesus said, he knew his mother and that he was going to take Jeremy to another place somewhere safe. After Jeremy grabbed the hand of Jesus, he went on to fly into the air higher and higher as they flew past the clouds and into outer space. They continued far past everything, including other planets, until they reached a rather wondrous place. It appeared to be that of a crystallized city that Jesus took Jeremy to. The streets were paved with gold. People seemed to be extraordinarily happy and friendly. Everyone around him felt like family. All of the colors were far more beautiful than they are on Earth. There were so many babies here, Jeremy said. He couldn't understand why there were so many. Workers there were taking care of these babies. They were all good, safe, and loved after having been aborted. Jeremy also explained that your mind in heaven gave you powers of transformation. You could do many things much like Jesus can do. Jeremy also could see the future and how his brother would choose the wrong side in life by joining the army. His brother Daniel later changes his ways and understands he is on the wrong side of things. Jeremy said his mother Giovanna from this point before the war will already be in heaven before all of this happens. From this conversation with his mother, Jeremy explains something bad and evil is coming and that the war will wage on from Satan's army. The threat will be the war of the alien demons invading Earth is serious and that people must be prepared. Giovanna's last statement was, "You must ask God into your heart and for forgiveness."
Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, which is also called Astaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination, there's that word, of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because the heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. Now go to the book of Amos, chapter 5. God's getting ready to reveal something here. Chapter 5, and we're going to start with verse 25. God is not in a good mood here. The people of Israel, the children of Israel, have been very foolish, and he's correcting them, like a good daddy does. And he says, in verse 24, "But let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream. Have ye offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel?" Verse 26, "But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Cheon, your images, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves." When Solomon had the temple built, he used people from a land called Tyre. Tyre worshipped a god called Baal. This is the symbol of Baal, not the stars of David. This is the seal of Solomon. It comes from the Jewish Kabbalah. And in that time, that's Jewish magic. You see, not all Jews worship the same God. Does that mean that the people of Israel, because they've taken that symbol for the symbol of their country, does that mean that they're evil? No. They're deceived. It's very subtle. And Satan, we all know that Satan can deceive people very, very well.
The Jews say it represents Israel. The witches say it represents our religious system. And we use it to place hexes, curses on people. That sort of gives you an idea of what the six-pointed star is. Now, if you look at the six-pointed star, you'll notice something interesting. You'll notice, Russell, and this is a shocking thing when people hear it the first time. You'll notice that there are 6 triangles, okay? External triangles.
That's right. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are also, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll have to go from memory here. There's also 6 points. So you have 6 points, 6 triangles. And then inside, the symbol inside has 6 sides to it.
Yeah, it looks like the Pentagon.
Yeah, exactly, the Pentagon.
Yeah.
So you have 6 sides there. You have 6 triangles and 6 outer points to the star. That comes to 666. Now, you might say, well, Tex, that must just be coincidental. 666, that's the number of the beast. Well, now, wait, that's the New Testament. The New Testament reveals that the number of the beast who comes up out of the earth, the Antichrist, the man of sin, the man of perdition, who brings all hell on earth when he comes, you might say as head of the New World Order, that man, that evil being that I think even the secular world knows about, they know about the number 666. But is there a connection to the Jews to that number? Or is this just a coincidence? Well, it's quite interesting. I've read a lot about this, and many of the rabbis quote, in their ancient literature, they quote a rabbi, for example, named Moses Haysood, Haysood. And Rabbi Hasud says of the number 666, remember the Jewish Kabbalists give great stock to numbers. But he says, and I quote him in my book, this well-known, very historic rabbi, he says that the number 666 in the religion of Judaism, quote, and this is a quote, contains lofty messianic potential. In other words, the potential of being messianic, our Messiah. He will have that number, in other words. Now that's sort of incredible. And by the way, I think that shows the power of God, because God said this number 666 will be the number of the beast, and it'll be the number of man.
Look what this guy had to say about the government hiding Nephilim giants in their military bases.
Greg Renrich, that was one of the things that he told me. He's the one that was talking about seeing the giants in the deep underground military bases. He said that one of the first things that they had to do before he was allowed to go into S4 or S20 or any of the others, they made him sign an affidavit saying, you're not allowed to use the name Jesus Christ in these underground facilities, not even if you stub your toe or anything. And he said that he saw 10 to 25 foot tall giants in these underground bases, and said that they were, human scientists and other people working side by side with him. He said that they even came right out and said they were the Nephilim. They came right out and said it. Said that, basically we're preparing for an intergalactic war with God, and they believe that they're going to win.
Where are they getting this they're going to win from?
And why are you not allowed to say the name Jesus in these underground facilities?
Jesus said, just like in the days of Noah, so will it be in the coming of the Son of Man.
Our favorite stories of the future show the ascent of humanity. Beyond sickness, beyond conflict, beyond the stars, and even beyond mortality. But what if all of our stories of the future were wrong? The assumption is that we will be there to see it. Today, we live in disparate perceptual worlds, where some can clearly see what others cannot. The fourth industrial revolution, giving birth to global technocracy. Elite masters transcending geopolitical boundaries, acting with impunity, celebrating our descent into bio-digital slavery. Even those who understand where we are right now may not yet perceive where we are heading. So what is the trajectory of humanity? Right now, we find ourselves accelerating exponentially towards the post-human world. How do we bridge our disparate worlds and raise the alarm? Press pause and look again at the world around us, on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, hopelessly addicted to technology. They tell us that artificial intelligence, virtual reality, genetic engineering, nanotechnology, synbio are all here for us to exploit, to set us free from evolution and become as gods. But as we reach into technology, technology also reaches into us. We have surpassed the Internet of Things and entered the Internet of Bodies, merging humans with machines, run by AI. Transhumanism is the transformation of the human species that continues to evolve with and through technology, bringing us to a threshold, the singularity. After the singularity, Earth becomes a post-human world, where human beings will be rendered obsolete. How far-fetched is the post-human world? The enabling technologies exist. The policies are in place. Sophisticated military operations are already underway. COVID-19 was a psyop. The intention was never the disease. It was always the injection. The normalization of compulsory injected bio-nano enhancement. Now, the traces of bio-nanotechnology are showing up everywhere in live blood analyses. Their global technocracy is rising up all around us and within us, whether we like it or not. This is omni-war, and they think they have won. Every day they tighten the screws. Surveillance, censorship, distraction, subversion. We need to be prepared for the most shocking of futures. But the story of our future is not yet written. In this vital moment, we still have time to choose. They have chosen their way to depart this world, but we will not comply. We are the resistance. Humanity's response to the fourth industrial revolution. We will choose our own way, and we must defend our freedom of choice, whatever the cost may be. Resistance means holding on to our humanity. If you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading. So choose wisely. What's left of your time starts now.